If you're planning to walk the Camino de Santiago in 2026, get ready for some major changes they can make or break your Camino de Santiago if you plan it the wrong way.
The Portuguese and the Costa are surging, nearly 190,000 pilgrims combined.
And the Camino is getting younger fast. The under 18 pilgrims jumped again, and that changes the vibe, that changes the pace and the bed also.
The Camino is evolving. In 2026 will feel different depending on when you go.
So in this episode we'll share our biggest 2026 predictions based on what actually changed in 2025. We will cover who's coming, when it's coming, and what route will feel different, and also why less men will walk this year the Camino.
Let's get this started.
The 2025 didn't just grow, it rewired the Camino. So the total pilgrims in Santiago were 530,000. But the real story isn't in the total numbers, it's in who grew and when did they arrive. And the first one arrived in March, which brought us the first massive surprise. Only 14,000 pilgrims reached Santiago. So for the second, it genuinely felt like the Camino boom is over. But then the April came and said, hold my wine, and exploded with 54,000 pilgrims. But that jump wasn't just random. It's exactly what happened when one big calendar moment shifts travel destinations and decisions all over the world. But we will come back to this later on in this video, so stay connected. May has become the international month with more than 78,000 pilgrims, out of which 56,000 were foreigners. Then June stayed surprisingly strong and steady with 74,000. Not a huge spike, just consistently full. July climbs into the summer mode with 67,000, and then August flips into domestic. Out of 77,000 pilgrims, nearly 50k were actually Spanish. That changes the vibe, that changes the pacing. It's a different holiday, it's a different rhythm. But then the September came and has become the new Camino King, crossing 81,000 line. But let's close the seasonal story with one more surprise. The October surprise with 62,000 pilgrims, which is not really the end season, but it's still the real wave. So now let's talk about what actually matters in 2026. Not which route is the best and not is the Camino crowded, but actually which week are you walking. Here's the accommodation crash dates for your 2026 Camino. Semana Santa, the Holy Week, March 29th to April 5th. Pressure on everything, all routes, all beds, all prices. The Fatima Peak in May 12-13, which will affect the entire Portugal in the routes from Lisbon, from Porto. The famous bull runs in Pamplona San Fermin, the 6th to 14th of July. The French way will be squeezed. Even if you're not planning to run with the bulls, your bed might be. A busy Assumption Day in August, really busy time in Santiago, not mentioning the 25th of July with the big St. James Feast. So our first prediction for 2026 is simple. It won't feel crowded or calm by route, but rather by week.
A quick heads up for you. We made a free 2026 rules and crowd cheat sheet. It's below in the description or above there. Grab it before you start planning.
So now for the part where people say Spain is full. No, Spain is not full. What happens is that the crowd's stuck in specific corridors at the specific times. So let's figure out which are those moments looking at the top 9 Camino routes of 2025. On the 9th place, Murcia and Finisterre with nearly 2,500 people. On the 8th place, Camino del Invierno, the quiet alternative of the second part of Camino Frances. 7th place, Via de Plata with nearly 9,000 people, but this is the commitment, the long distance, the long mindset, and a totally different type of pilgrim. On the 6th place, Camino del Norte, still strong, still epic, but logistically demanding with 21k. The Camino Primitivo getting to 28,000, harder, healer, and the more Camino with character. On the 4th place, we got Camino Ingles with more than 30,000 people, short, practical and perfect for people who want a Camino experience without a month of work. Third place, the Camino Portuguese, the costa weigh 90,000 people, and this is one of the biggest 2026 stories. The coastal isn't the niche anymore, it's the monster now. And on the second place, Camino Portuguese central route crossing 1,100 pilgrims. Then together with coastal they basically form the third part of the Camino universe. And here's the part most people don't say it aloud. Those two Portuguese routes merge in Redondela, so you can walk quiet and suddenly step into the crowd river. Which leads us to the most busiest Camino, which is the French way, with 240,000 people, still the heavyweight champion and still default Camino. But if you want the real truth of how crowds start, don't look at the route names, look at where people start, because starting points reveals behaviors. So here's the top 9 of the most popular starting places in 2025. On the 9th place, Oviedo, the Camino Primitivo, with 15,000 people. On the 8th place, Valencia Dominio, with 18,000 pilgrims starting from this beautiful, amazing town. On the 7th place, Vigo, with 18,500, shorter start, same Compostela logic and the very 2026 behavior. Or Porto through coastal way, more than 25,000, another huge signal that the coastal is a mainstream now. On the 5th place, Porto, but through the central way, 26,000. On the 4th place, Ferrol, getting close to 30,000 people, and that confirms that the Camino Inglés is not a niche anymore, it's a real contender. On the 3rd place, Saint-Jean-Pierre-de-Port, slightly down than the previous year with 30,000 people, but it's still the romantic classic start. On the 2nd place, we have Tui with 41,000 pilgrims. That's the new Sarria signal. Not in culture, in behavior. It represents people choosing the minimum because life is busy and everybody still wants the Compostela. And finally, there is no surprises here. The first place goes to Sarria, more than 160,000 pilgrims. Still the king, still the magnet, and still the last 100-kilometer machine. So I bet for 2026 the pressure won't be everywhere, it will be in few predictable bottlenecks. So where are you watching from? Which Camino are you planning in 2026? Drop the country, route and the month, like for example USA, Portuguese way in September. And let's see what our community is planning this year. So 2026 isn't shaped only by rules and route logistics, it's shaped by what's trending. So let's do it properly. Top 10 nationalities in 2025, the countdown style. On the 10th place, Australia, 9,000 pilgrims. And maybe that's because the winter in Australia, or maybe that's because the last year release of Their Way, My Way, which stole many of people's hearts. On the 9th place, France, falling down less than 10,000 people. And on the 8th place, Ireland, crossing 10,000 mark. And Ireland stays steady, the kind of pilgrim presence you don't notice loudly, but you always feel warmly. On the 7th place, Mexico, a huge rise, 21%, and this is the loudest sign on the whole list. The Mexico is rising fast and it's part of the bigger thing, the America's momentum. On the 6th place, the UK, the Brits are showing up, practical, determined and suspiciously good with the walking in the bad weather. Portugal on the 5th place with 22,000 pilgrims, especially with the Portuguese route being a superhighway now, that seems like a pretty common sense. On the 4th place, Germany, 24,000 pilgrims. Even when it dips a little, there's still Germany, consistent, committed and quietly everywhere. On the 3rd place, Italy, with 26,000 people. This is actually a big drop of 12%. We predicted that the Holy Year in Rome will take away many of Italians' crowds, but the 2026 will look totally different. As only a few days ago, the big blockbuster comedy Buen Camino has been released in Italy, which will attract millions of possible pilgrims from that country. Which is a good news because Italians always bring two things on the trail, the passion and the food. And on the 2nd place, United States, nearly 44,000 pilgrims, and it's the biggest story because Americans don't just come for the walk. They come for the life reset. And finally, on the first plate, Spain, nearly 23,000 pilgrims, which, let's be honest, that matters because Spanish holiday patterns are exactly what create those "why is everything booked" weeks.
Our prediction for 2026: who shows up will follow what's trending and what flight people can afford.
Last curveball segment, the 2026 won't just be more pilgrims, it might be a different pilgrims. First of all, under 18 pilgrims jumped 22%, reaching nearly 50k pilgrims, which means more families, more groups and the shorter stages, and also more people looking for private rooms instead of the 40-bed dorms. But still the most popular demographic is 18 to 45, followed by 46 to 65. Our lovely seniors are still heading really strong, with more than 60,000 young souls walking slowly the Caminos. Curiously, women are still in the majority with 53% versus 46% of men, but men increased faster this year, so it could mean that 2006 could feel a bit more balanced. Another bigger start of the Camino are what are the reasons that you actually walk, and we have the dominance of the religious one with 43%, obviously, but also nearly 19% express the non-religious reasons. Fair enough, everyone's welcome on the Camino. But here's the most important part, the biggest wildcard on 2026, which is the FIFA World Cup from June 11 to July 19, which will happen in USA, Canada and Mexico. What does it mean? That means that some will go earlier, some will go later, and it can change who shows up in June, July, leaves many of men and women out of the Camino de Santiago. So in 2026, the crowd pattern shifts. More younger pilgrims and the big events will reshape the busiest weeks. And before we go, remember this: the Camino isn't hard because you can't walk it. It's hard because people plan it the wrong week. And watch this video because this is the must watch to choose the right route and timing, so you can actually immerse in the Camino, not just survive it.
Buen
Buen
camino,
camino,
chicos.
ultra ya.